Hello, and welcome back to Spittin' Sports with Lamar. I am Casey Lamar, and I'm coming at you from the 256. In this video, I just wanted to give a quick reaction, thoughts about Week 12 of the college football season from the top 25 games. So let's go ahead and get to that. Friday night, you had number 25 Boise State taking on New Mexico. That's about all you got to say about that. Boise State 45-14, just beat up on the Lobos. Number 1 Alabama, they took on the Citadel. Shocking first half. 10-10 was the score at halftime between Alabama and the Citadel. Just shocking. That's the only way to put it. But the Citadel dominated time of possession. Alabama had their second possession at the start of the second quarter. Was their second possession in the game. Dominated time of possession, 3 yards, 4 yards here in that triple option. It took Alabama at halftime to adjust and really make this game what it should have been the whole time. They won 50-17. They came out in the third quarter and just put the game away. But it was really shocking at halftime to have Alabama tied with the Citadel 10-10. The way the Alabama team has played at times this season. The game against Mississippi State and LSU, specifically Mississippi State was the team that really slowed down Alabama. So it was weird seeing the Citadel of all teams score 10 points and be tied with the Tide at halftime. But Alabama did what you expected them to do in this game in the second half. They won the game 50-17 with no real issues other than the first half against the Citadel. Next, Duke, they jumped out early, punched Clemson a couple times with a couple field goals, made it 6-0, and then it was all Clemson after that. Duke started, like I said, they started early, 6 points in the first quarter to Clemson 0. But Clemson did what they've been doing. The rest of the game, they just dominated the Blue Devils. No real issues. When all was said and done, 35-6 was the final score there. Clemson still undefeated with their game against South Carolina coming up this weekend. Next, you had number 12 Syracuse, number 3 Notre Dame. Really expected a better game out of this, much closer game. I expected Notre Dame to win, but I expected it to be much closer. But Notre Dame just went out there and stomped a mud hole in Syracuse. But I will say those uniforms Notre Dame were wearing were absolutely gross. They were ugly. Please never wear those again, Notre Dame. You got a good football team, but the uniforms were hard to watch. But Notre Dame just absolutely crushed Syracuse Orange in Yankee Stadium. 36-3. Syracuse didn't score till the third. So no real game there. But Notre Dame, 11-0. They get past USC. They will be in the playoff. They will not leave out an undefeated Notre Dame. Next, you had Indiana and Michigan. Michigan was losing at halftime in this football game, 17-15. But they righted the ship in the second half and did what they've been doing, locked down on the defensive side of the ball, scored enough points to win the football game. They end up beating Indiana 31-20, much like you'd expect them to beat Indiana. We'll see if Harbaugh can do what he hasn't done this weekend, and that is defeat the Ohio State Buckeyes. Number 5 Georgia, they took on UMass. Just the two team names. That's about all you got to say. Georgia 66-27. Surprised that they gave up 27 points, but didn't matter anyway because they scored 66 of their own. Georgia, easy win with their game with Georgia Tech coming up this weekend before they head to Atlanta to take on Alabama in the SEC championship game. Next, number 6 Oklahoma was taking on Kansas. You'd expect Oklahoma to win. They did, but they gave up 40 points in the process, which shouldn't be a surprise at this point. They gave up 23 in the fourth quarter, but it didn't matter. Obviously, Oklahoma 55-40 got the job done against Kansas. Kansas with the new football head coach hiring of Les Miles, official yesterday. But Oklahoma keep their playoff and championship hopes alive with the 55-40 win over Kansas. Rice, the number 7 LSU was taking on Rice. That's about all you got to say about that. 1-10 Rice at the start of the game is now 1-11 Rice. LSU is now 9-2, 6-1 at home. That only loss being to the Alabama Crimson Tide, of course. But 42-10 LSU won. Arizona, Washington State. Washington State again proves they're just that much better than the rest of their conference. They scored 55 points in the first half. They were up 55-14. I mean, this team scored on their own kickoff. They were kicking the ball off to the Arizona Wildcats. The Arizona guy did not catch it. It dropped, bounced past him. Washington State recovered it in the end zone off their own kickoff for a touchdown. Never seen that before. It'll be a long time before you see it again. Probably won't ever happen again in my lifetime, but it's absolutely ridiculous. Washington State is by far the best team in the Pac-12, but they've got a huge game in the Apple Cup this weekend against their biggest rival, Washington, against the Huskies. So Washington State still in the driver's seat to make the Pac-12 championship, and definitely look like the best team in the conference. West Virginia, their playoff hopes are over after this past weekend. They were beating Oklahoma State and then choked it away in the second half. They gave up 21 in the fourth quarter alone, and they end up losing to the Oklahoma State Cowboys 45-41. Playoff dreams are gone for the Mountaineers. Sorry to tell you, at 8-2, they still have a chance to play Oklahoma, possibly, but they do play Oklahoma this weekend. Excuse me, but they still have a chance to play in the Big 12 championship game. But that would require them beating Oklahoma to do that. But West Virginia choked away their chances at a possible playoff. Will Greer, he'll still be in New York, but that'll be the biggest prize that West Virginia could probably win this year besides the Big 12 is possibly the Heisman, but I don't believe that's going to happen either. But Oklahoma State upset West Virginia. Number 10, Ohio State versus Maryland. Maryland could have put this game away, but they did not. They let Ohio State get back in the game. Ohio State, as good teams always do, they get back into it, and they ended up winning in overtime. If you're an Ohio State fan, you should probably be sending the Maryland. I don't remember his name, but the Maryland quarterback. He missed a wide open receiver on the 2-point conversion. You should probably send him a gift for Christmas this year. Go pick something up on Black Friday. He missed a wide open receiver that would have ended Ohio State's playoff chances, would have ended national championship chances. But he missed him. Ohio State won the football game in overtime, 52-51. Huge game at home against the Michigan Wolverines. This weekend, Ohio State still controls their own destiny as far as making the Big Ten championship, and then if they could win that, we'll see if they can make the playoffs. But they got to play Michigan this weekend. It is a home game for the Buckeyes, but huge game. I'm looking forward to seeing on Saturday between Michigan and Ohio State. UCF, they're just better than everybody else in their conference. I will not deny that they are a good football team, but when you have a strength of schedule that is almost 120th in the country, that should tell a lot to why you're 10-0. I will say that UCF is a good football team, but you're not making the playoff. The committee has pretty much spoken. 11, they would stay at 11. If West Virginia hadn't lost, they would stay at 11 this week. They're not moving anywhere. They might make 10 this week. The only way they crack 10 is if they go and win the bowl game over whoever they are matched up with. But UCF, they get the job done again against a conference foe that has looked really good at times this year, Cincinnati. But UCF at home, they beat them rather easily. 38-13 was the final score there. Next, Florida versus Idaho. That's about all you have to say. Florida, 63-10 over the Idaho Vandals. Penn State playing at Rutgers. That's about all you have to say about that one as well. But 20-7 was the score. You'd probably expect that to be a little bit more. But Penn State, Rutgers didn't score that touchdown until the fourth quarter, so it really didn't matter. But Penn State 20-7 over Rutgers. Iowa State, they controlled their own destiny to make the Big 12 championship. They went out. They would be there, but they did not win out. They lost to Texas. They got beat pretty easily by Texas. It was 24-3 until the fourth quarter for the Longhorns, and the Longhorns they take down the Cyclones. I really thought Iowa State, they had showed up for basically every game this year besides Oklahoma. They got beat by Oklahoma, and of course they always get beat by Iowa. But they really had a chance again this year to make the Big 12 championship game, but they fumbled that opportunity against Texas and lose 24-10. Kentucky, they played Middle Tennessee, jumped out early. That's all they needed. Kentucky, they get the job done. They're now 8-3, but they win 34-23 over Middle Tennessee State or Middle Tennessee. Washington, they were up by 25 points after the first quarter. That's all they needed to do over Oregon State. The final score ended up being 42-23. Oregon State, they're not a good football team. Washington took care of business rather easily. Washington State, huge game. I believe it is on Friday. But huge game, Apple Cup, Washington versus Washington State. I believe that decides who goes to the Pac-12 championship game. So huge implications there in the Apple Cup this week. Utah and Colorado was tied at 7 at the half. A lot of snow. One time the ref had to go over the loudspeaker to tell people to stop throwing snowballs. But the Utes, they end up getting it done, putting away Colorado in the second half. They ended up winning 30-7. Utah, they still lead their division in the Pac-12, so they've still got a really good shot of making the Pac-12 championship. Next, Florida State, keep the dreams of making a playoff game alive. Not a playoff game. I keep wanting to say playoff. A bowl game. They kept their dreams alive. Is it 36 straight or 26 straight? Whatever it is, I believe it's the longest streak in the country. But Florida State kept those dreams alive by taking down the number 20 Boston College. 22-21. I'm really surprised that they won that game. But Florida State, they got the job done over Boston College, 22-21. Mississippi State, their offense woke up a little bit, but you're playing Arkansas, so you'd expect that. They just absolutely killed the Razorbacks, roasted the Razorbacks, whatever you want to say, 52-6. Mississippi State. We know their defense is really good, but the offense has been called into question this season. But they win 52-6 over Arkansas. Northwestern, they kept their winning ways in the Big Ten alive over the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Northwestern's probably going to represent the West in the Big Ten championship game over Michigan. It will be against Michigan or Ohio State. But Northwestern, they're 7-4, 7-1 in Big Ten play. It's pretty funny to see that 3 of their 4 losses have come out of conference. But Northwestern 24-14 over Minnesota, over the Golden Gophers. Northwestern, sneaky under the radar team. They took Michigan to the brink. They played Notre Dame really well as well a few weeks ago. But Northwestern 24-14 over the Golden Gophers. And then the last game of the top 25, Utah State was taking on Colorado State. Number 23 Utah State. They're 10-1. They beat Colorado State, knocking them to 3-8. But it took a play with no time left on the clock. It took an untimed down to get that done. But they won the game. That's all that matters. We saw Kentucky do that against Missouri this season. Untimed down for the win. Utah State did that over Colorado State on Saturday. But that is it for a recap, reaction, whatever you want to call it, to the top 25 games of Week 12. Playoff rankings come out tomorrow, so we'll see where everybody's at. Everything should stand pat besides West Virginia will be moved back. That should be the only major move that comes out of that. But it's a rivalry week, so a lot of huge games this weekend. Iron Bowl. You got Clemson playing South Carolina. I know South Carolina isn't that great of a team, but still rivalry game. Ohio State and Michigan, of course. I will definitely be tuning into Ohio State, Michigan. Definitely the Iron Bowl, because that game's always a fierce rivalry that I always enjoy seeing. But that'll wrap it up for this one. This has been Spittin' Sports with Lamar. I am Casey Lamar. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.